where the Ngami resisted, fearing conquest. British, however, managed to dominate the area with their superior firepower. The Naga homeland, in fact, only came under British administrative control in 1866. After the fall of Konoma in 1879, an unwritten peace treaty was negotiated between the Nagas and the British, under which the Naga homeland was excluded from British India and became known as the Naga Hills Excluded Area. In May 1951, the NNC launched a plebiscite in Nagaland, which resulted in 99% of all Nagas endorsing complete support for an independent Nagaland. The issue of Naga independence and the verdict of the Naga plebiscite was put to the then first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, in Delhi on March the 11th, 1952. Now, even though Nehru had supported self-determination for the Nagas in 1944, when faced with the demand, he simply exploded with anger and exclaimed,
"Whether heaven falls or India goes to pieces and blood runs red in the country, I don't care. Whether I'm here or for that matter, any other body comes in, I don't care. Nagas will not be allowed to become independent."
In January 1952, the Naga National Council launched a civil disobedience campaign, refusing to pay taxes and boycotting India's first ever general election. No Nagas stood for election. No Nagas voted. Nevertheless, on March the 30th, 1953, the Nagas welcomed Nehru's decision to visit Kohima. The Prime Minister was accompanied by his daughter, Indira Gandhi, and also by the Burmese Premier, U Nu. The Naga National Council leaders were busy preparing the memorandum to be submitted to the two Prime Ministers. Thousands of Nagas gathered at the Kohima football ground, but Nehru was rigid. Just before the meeting, he gave instructions stopping the Nagas from making any oral or written address to the reception. As a result, the Naga delegation walked out in defiance of such blatant repression. Nehru and U Nu were left, almost alone, to address just a handful of government servants. Nehru felt humiliated. Immediately, arrest warrants were issued for 8 NNC leaders. The whole Naga Hills district and the sensitive areas were declared disturbed. House raids on Naga leaders followed, and many went into hiding. The Disturbed Area Act was imposed on the Naga Hills in 1954. Nagaland, in effect, fell under the cloud of martial law. Realizing the danger of armed repression, on August 10, 1954, Fizo entered into agreement with the leaders of Free Nagas and formed the Naga Country Guard to oppose the Indian armed forces. The first armed resistance group was born. By 1955, the Indian Army, or the Jawan, moved into Trensang. The Assam Disturbed Areas Act of 1955 was introduced to enable the Assam Armed Police and the Assam Rifles to act without any legal restriction whatsoever. A reign of terror broke out, and the open war commenced, a war that has brought heavy casualties and loss of life to both sides for many years. On the 22nd of March 1956, the Naga National Council inaugurated its federal government of Nagaland, known as the FGN, an armed opposition movement, and amalgamated with the Naga Home Guard, soon to be known as the Naga Army. In 1956, the fighting intensified between the Indian security forces and the Naga resistance. Churches were burned, villages razed, aircraft were used to bomb and harass the Nagas. Women were raped, and they continue to be molested. See Area Burma with SS Kaplang, a Konyak leader of Burmese origin, together formed the National Socialist Council of Nagaland, the NSCN, in 1980.
When the darkness shadow round above me grave.
The war continued. Oinam village, July the 9th, 1987. It was here a decisive battle took place. An advanced group of Naga guerrillas attacked the 3rd Assam Rifles, and an entire company was overrun by the Naga forces. Naga morale was sky high. The whole of the company's arsenal was captured. Hundreds of arms and rounds of ammunition fell into Naga hands, but the triumph was to prove short-lived. What became known as the Oinam incident led to changes in Indian strategy and policy that were to prove very damaging indeed for the Nagas. The Indian Army counterattacked, launching Operation Bluebird. It instigated a divide and rule policy between the Nagas and their neighbouring tribal group, the Kukis, inciting communal discord wherever possible. Blood and tears flowed. This time not between the Indians and the Nagas, but between the Nagas and their Kuki brothers. Then, in April 1988, the National Socialist Council of Nagaland split into two factions, following a bloody purge engineered by SS Kaplang. He accused Muiva and Isaac of collaborating with the Indian government to renounce Naga sovereignty. On April 30th, 1988, the Burmese military joined Kaplang's followers and surrounded the National Socialist Council of Nagaland's headquarters, killing about 200 members of the Thankful tribe, loyal to Muiva. Muiva and Isaac managed, however, to escape, along with some 200 others, to safety. Within a month, in the thick jungle, many died from hunger and sickness. Only 33, including Muiva and Isaac, managed to survive. In 1990, A.Z. Fizo, one of the key architects of Naga resistance, passed away in London. In his death, Fizo achieved the dignity and the honour that was denied to him all his life by the Indian government. It was indeed a fitting irony. His body was brought back from London draped in the National Council flag. In his death, Fizo finally attained the position, much to the disdain of the government of India, that he had always had in the hearts and minds of his people. That of a head of state, a sovereign ruler. Nevertheless, having recovered from the bloody and painful attack, the NSCN, under the leadership of Isaac and Muiva, emerged as the strongest resistance force in the entire region. And then, following the United Nations International Year of Indigenous People in 1993, NSCN representatives began to participate in various UN gatherings. The Naga issue was taken up in the international community, especially the Indian government's role in human rights violations in the Naga areas, something, however, which the Indian government hardly bothered to deny. Later in January 1993, the NSCN, again under the leadership of Isaac and Muiva, were invited to represent the Nagas to the Unrepresented Nations and Peoples Organization, UNPO, based at The Hague in the Netherlands. In 1997, the then Prime Minister of India, Mr. H.D. Deve Gowda, informed the Lok Sabha that the government had initiated dialogue with the NSCN, Isaac and Muiva, and issued a statement endorsing the peace process on the 30th of May 1997. As a result, On the 24th of July 1997, the NSCN, Isaac Amuiva, and the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. I.K. Gujral, announced a 3-month ceasefire that came into effect on August the 1st, 1997. Peace had come at last.
We don't have Greater Nagaland.